Hello everybody, my name is Cameron Earl and welcome back to another video. Today I am doing something that I think I've only done once, but it was kind of just like a little video that I made because I was bored and I don't really think uh, it did very well because nobody was really looking for these at the time. And I don't know if people are still looking for these, but I think now, this is going to be another villainous video. I think now we got enough villainous sets for me to make a buyer's guide for Villainous. Um, so Disney Villainous itself currently has, I got them all on the table here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Disney Villainous just by itself has 9 sets, with the 10th one coming out in July. Um, and then, of course, there's the Marvel and the Star Wars sets, but I'm not going to make a Marvel and Star Wars buyer's guide because, as with Disney Villainous, every villain is super unique. Some are way easier to understand than others. Some are way easier to win with than others. Marvel Villainous and Star Wars Villainous, all those characters, they're also all very unique from each other, but they're also like the same level of complicated to understand with the new mechanics. If you're going to get Marvel Villainous or Star Wars Villainous, I would still at least buy one of the core boxes for Disney Villainous just to get a feeling of like the base mechanics, because Disney Villainous built the foundation that Marvel and Star Wars Villainous sets stand on. And Marvel Villainous and Star Wars Villainous serve to complicate things and give them new mechanics that are a lot harder to understand. Like Marvel Villainous' shared fate deck, and the fact that you can move cards to other players' boards, or Star Wars Villainous with its double currencies and having to learn how to shuffle between those and stuff. So yeah, definitely, if you were going to get any of the 3 series, I would definitely go with Disney if you're starting out. Why is my camera losing focus so much? Yeah. I'm definitely making this video assuming that the person watching this is does not even know how to play Villainous, has never played a Villainous game, and is trying and wants to get into playing it. All these sets are still okay. What's going on? Why are you refocusing so much? All these Villainous sets are still available online, and you can still get all of them, with the exception of some of the Target exclusive ones. You might have to buy those online for pretty pricey. But we're just going to get started. So, in my opinion, what is the first Villainous box you should buy first? And I think that's pretty obvious. I think the first Villainous box that you should buy is either the Worst Takes It All, the green box, or if you want simpler rules but don't care about losing 2 of the characters, you can get Introduction to Evil. So the differences between these 2 boxes is, well, first, Introduction to Evil rewrites the rules a little bit and kind of remechanizes or whatever, reconstructs the goals of Ursula, Prince John, Maleficent, and Captain Hook. 4 villains from the original box, but the problem with Introduction to Evil is that it took out Queen of Hearts and Jafar. They are no longer available in Introduction to Evil. So, and I have not seen this set in stores after Introduction to Evil became available. So I'm sure, I know you can still get this online, but I'm not sure if you could just go straight to the store and get it in retail. You'll probably find just Introduction to Evil. So what's the differences between these? So Introduction to Evil is called Introduction to Evil because it makes the rules simpler, and it makes the villains simpler to understand. And all of these villains are pretty beginner friendly, honestly. You have Maleficent. Maleficent teaches you the basics of placing down cards and where to place cards and trying to keep them on your board. Captain Hook is probably the best beginner villain that has a lock token. You have to shuffle between placing your allies, and he's the first villain who really has to go through his hero deck, and he also has to defeat a hero. So Captain Hook shows you how to go through your fate deck and defeat a hero. Jafar, another lock token. Jafar shows you the best ways to shuffle through your deck, and also showing that a lot of villains have multiple steps. Jafar has like 5. And also he shows you how to move items and allies. And so does Captain Hook in a sense. He shows you how to move heroes. Prince John has you trying the best way to gain power. Queen of Hearts really hammers in that activate action. And once again, teaching you card placement. And Ursula, I would say, is definitely the least beginner-friendly villain. But Ursula definitely has probably the most strategy to her out of these characters. Ursula's kind of like a shuffle of all the villains combined. I would definitely not pick up Ursula right away. If this set, I definitely want to play Ursula first. So what did oh wait, I got the instructions out. So Introduction to Evil served to remake Ursula, Captain Hook, Maleficent, and Prince John. So Maleficent's goal, you have to have a curse at each location. Introduction to Evil, she now has to have an ally at a location to place a curse, but all her curses are pretty much the same. Making probably the only villain they actually made more difficult. Well, no, actually, they made Prince John more difficult, too. But yeah, Maleficent also just has brutal heroes. I would say, in a 50-50 between these, if you wanted a simpler Maleficent, go for the green box. Ursula, in the original box, Ursula has to attach binding contracts to heroes that have the name of a location on them, and she has to use her allies, Flotsam and Jetsam, to move those heroes to the location that the binding contract states to defeat that hero. She has to use that on King Triton to get his trident from him, and she also has to have the crown at the lair. But she also shuffles her lock token. That's another thing. They have 2 villains from the original set that have lock tokens, Captain Hook and Ursula, and they got rid of the lock tokens. In Introduction to Evil, they made it so binding contracts just give a vanquish action to the location they have to be played at. They have to be played at specific locations. Obviously, Ursula doesn't have a lock token. Instead, the card to change the location of the lock token on Ursula, because Ursula is also the only villain in all of these sets that has a lock token that she cannot get rid of. She changes into either her octopus form or her human form, switching the lock token between the sea and the land. Now her change form card just gives her a good way to get through her deck, which old Ursula definitely needs. They definitely needed that. The Whirlpool as well is different now. If I would say if you wanted the better version of Ursula, go with Introduction to Evil. So that's 1 point for Introduction to Evil, 1 point for Worst Takes It All. Captain Hook, super unnecessary change. Captain Hook was the first villainous villain I ever played, and I think they did him splendidly. He's still one of my favorite to play from the original box. And I think what they did to him was just stupid. Where instead of him going through his deck to find Peter Pan and playing the Neverland map to unlock Hangman's Tree and then move Peter Pan, they made it so you have to play the Neverland map to find Peter Pan, but Peter Pan can't be moved if the Neverland map is on your board, so you have to vanquish another hero. And it could be just so much more time consuming, but at the same time it could also be quicker. But I think it was such an unnecessary change. I still really like the Captain Hook from the first set and not Introduction to Evil. This point goes to Worst Takes It All. And finally, Prince John. Prince John did get more complicated with Introduction to Evil. His goal is relatively the same, where he has to still gain that 20 power, but in Introduction to Evil, they changed some of his cards so he could go through the hero deck and take more vanquish actions, because he also has to find and defeat Robin Hood and send Robin Hood to the jail. So he has to have, so in Introduction to Evil, he has to have Robin Hood at the jail and have 20 power, and Worst Takes It All, he only has to have 20 power. If you wanted simpler, I'd go with Worst Takes It All, because he knew anything. But if you're also going for fun factor, I would go with Introduction to Evil. But if I would say which set to buy, if you're younger and don't care about Jafar and Queen of Hearts, get Introduction to Evil. You might like it a little bit more. It also has simpler rules. Like the rule book for the original Villainous set is like 20 pages or something like that. This one's just 4. It's a 4-page rule book. I'm probably definitely over-exaggerating on the amount of pages in this rule book. Yeah, this rule book has like 4 pages. This rule book has 11. This rule book has 11 pages. Okay. Yeah, definitely over-exaggerated. Oof. That was loud. That was the fox. But honestly, from my standpoint, even if you are young and just want simpler rules, I would still go online and get the Worst Takes It All instead of Introduction to Evil. That is if you want to eventually get all the villains. If you're going for fun factor and variety of which of these 2 sets I would recommend you get first, because I recommend you get one of these first, I would definitely go with the Worst Takes It All. Get Introduction to Evil if you don't really care about Jafar and Queen of Hearts, and get better variety. Alright, so we got what boxes to get first. But that was obvious that I would say to buy one of those card sets first. So next I'm getting to what the expansions. What order should you buy the expansions in? So of course we're going based off, you're looking for some more beginner-friendly villains that could help you get into the basics of the game faster. You're not going for difficulty. You're not going for a challenge. You want to get the easiest villains to understand first. And I would say that actually the 4th expansion they released, Despicable Plots, is the best set to buy next. Now, is this one of my least favorite Villainous sets? Yes. I'm not a big fan of Despicable Plots, unfortunately. This set comes with a very lackluster... I'm going to turn this on. This set comes with a very lackluster Gaston. I really want to know what my phone's focusing on, because it's not the box and it's not me. This set comes with a very lackluster Gaston. The Horned King is pretty difficult to win with, but he's easy to understand. And Lady Tremaine also isn't too hard to understand. But I think Gaston is probably the most beginner-friendly villain that they released within the first 4 expansions. So Gaston doesn't have to do anything with the Beast or Belle. Actually, he can't win if Belle is on the board. That's why he's so lackluster. I think it's focusing on my hat. That's why Gaston is so lackluster. He actually just has 8 obstacles on his board. These 8 obstacle tokens, 2 at each location, and he has to play the same cards over and over and over again to get them off his board. That being said, the Horned King, you have to play cards to find the Cauldron token, and you have to activate it with the Ancient Guards to flip it over. The activate action, if you play Queen of Hearts, you would be familiar with straight off the bat, and Ursula and Jafar has one as well. And I think that's it. Yeah, I don't think any other villains have them in the first set. And you have to use that to flip over the Cauldron, and at the beginning of each of your turns, you can spend 2 power to replace an Ancient Soldier's card you have of Cauldronborn. Put that at each location. Horned King's Fate deck doesn't do much to him. Horned King actually, I think, has one of the weakest Fate decks out of all 28 villains we currently have, including Introduction to Evil. And Lady Tremaine is like another Jafar. She has multiple steps. She has to play the Invitation to unlock the ballroom. She has to play one of the sisters. She has to play the ball gown on one of those sisters. And then she has to use the wedding bells to marry the ball gown sister and the prince, whichever one you choose, because you can choose 2 of them. Lady Tremaine, much like Ursula, also doesn't have a way to kill heroes without one of her cards. She doesn't have a vanquish action on board. Instead, Lady Tremaine can just completely stop a villain or a hero from using their ability by placing lock tokens on them, which is her main gimmick, is the lock token. So yeah, I would definitely get this set next. But there's also another set that I think could definitely rival it for, like, which one would you get next? And this one's not going for so much beginner, but it's going more for fun factor. And that's Wicked to the Core. So if you wanted to speed the learning process up a little bit and get to some of the more beginner-friendly, complicated villains, I know those 2 words don't really make sense, but I hope you see what I'm getting at. I would go for Wicked to the Core. Now, Wicked to the Core was the 2nd expansion was the second set ever that they released. This came right after the green one. And it introduces Dr. Facilier, Wicked Queen, and Hades. Now, the most beginner-friendly villain in this one is Hades, for sure. Even though I think Hades is the most difficult one to win with in the box because he's just kind of slow to win with. Hades, you simply have to get 3 of your Titans to Mount Olympus. And to do that, you have to play 3 of the 5 Titans. They can only be played to the Underworld, and then you have to move them across your board over all your turns to get at least 3 of them to Mount Olympus, and start your turn with 3 of them at Mount Olympus. Horn King's Fate deck can be pretty brutal, but you can still recuperate from it. And Hades is definitely really good at introducing that move item and ally mechanic, moving stuff across your board. That you don't have to use that for many villains, but Hades is definitely the most beginner-friendly in this box. But the reason why I think I put Despicable Plots over this set is because of the mechanics of Dr. Facilier and the Evil Queen. So the Evil Queen we have, with Marvel and Star Wars combined, we have 50 villains, soon to be 54. I'm pretty sure that's the number in July. And still, out of 50 villains, she is the only one who has a special action on her board. The Evil Queen has a special action called the Brew Poison action, which is just this picture of a little potion on her board in the lab. And Evil Queen, once again, has no Vanquish action on her board. She only has 1 ally, and she can't even use that ally to defeat a hero. So Evil Queen has to play all 4 of her ingredient cards to unlock the Dwarf's Cottage, while also trying to, preferably with the Magic Mirror, find Snow White. But Evil Queen has to use that Brew Poison action to turn the power that she has into poison tokens. And then you have to use that the number of poison tokens equal to a hero's strength to defeat that hero. And that's how you defeat heroes. I think after the first few games, you'll start to understand the Brew Poison action more. But if I had to choose which mechanic was probably the most difficult to get the hang of, out of all these villains, it was probably the Evil Queen's Brew Poison action. A villain who's not as complicated or as difficult to understand, but can still have a kind of a learning curve, is Dr. Facilier. So Dr. Facilier introduces fortune cards into his deck. And basically, he doesn't have a special type of card. It's just like the Evil Queen has ingredient cards and Maleficent has curse cards. No, some of his effect cards and ally cards just have a fortune ability on them. So Dr. Facilier is going to have a separate deck called the Fortune Pile. And what you're trying to do with Facilier is you're trying to play... Dr. Facilier is one of the quickest villains to win with in the game. He can potentially win in like 3 turns, actually, if the circumstances are right. It's crazy. So you have to play this card called Rule New Orleans, and that'll go right into your Fortune Pile. Then you have to have the Talisman on your side of the board. The Talisman can be stolen by heroes with a strength of 3 or less, and you would have to defeat that hero to get it back. But then, if you have the Talisman in your control, on your side of the board, and roll New Orleans in the Fortune Pile, you can go to the Emporium, which is his starting location, the first location on his board, to draw cards from your Fortune Pile. You draw 3 of them. You shuffle your Fortune Pile, have one of your opponents draw 3 cards at random, and if you draw New Orleans, you win. There's some cards that can stop you. A lot of people, if this is their first time playing against Dr. Facilier, I feel like it would be harder for them to stop Dr. Facilier than it would be for Dr. Facilier to win. I feel like it's more difficult to stop him if you're just starting. But I feel like later on it's actually easier to stop Facilier than for Facilier to win. The strategy to stop Facilier from winning so quickly, being that he can win so quickly, is to try to fate him enough to where you build up his Fortune Pile as much as possible to make it less and less likely that he will draw the Rule New Orleans card. And there's also some cards where if he draws them during the Cards Will Tell thing at his first location, that'll just simply not let him win, even if he did draw New Orleans. So, yeah, I would definitely say that if you're going for villains who don't have like the biggest learning curve and there's still some simplicity with them, and if you're going for fun, I think this is one of the best boxes. I would definitely pick this one up as early as possible, but I would also pick this one up along with it if you're going for definitely beginner friendly. So yeah, I would say after one of the core boxes, or both, if you want to try them both, I'm not stopping you. I would definitely pick up one or both of these boxes next. Alright, so we're getting into our next villains. And I would say that the next box you should probably buy is the third box they released, which is Evil Comes Prepared, the box with Scar. So I started collecting Villainous sets about 2 weeks after this set came out. I was walking through Target, looking for a birthday present for a family friend. His daughter had a birthday, and my dad took me to Target, and we were looking for a birthday present for her birthday. And this was perfect. This was right when I was getting into my my board game collecting, and also when I was getting my board game hobby, and also when I was getting into Disney movies. I was trying to watch all the Disney movies I missed, and then I saw this, and I'm like, wait, is that Scar? It says Disney Villainous, and I turn it around, and I see not only one of my favorite Disney villains, but another one of my favorite Disney villains. And a Disney villain I had no clue about at the time. And I was seriously like, wait, is this a card game where you play as the villains? And then I immediately went home and looked this up right after the birthday party. And I just fell in love with the concept of this game, of playing through a movie, like that villain's movie, as that villain, trying to complete their villainous goal from the movie, and just seeing what would happen if they, trying to, complete that villain's goal from the movie. I think it's a very interesting concept, and I don't think they fully flunked with any set except one. There's one set we have yet to talk about that's pretty bad. But, yeah. After we got Maleficent and the Evil Queen on the front of the boxes, we definitely knew eventually we would have to get Scar. And, Scar... some villains need you to defeat heroes. Just one hero. Like Evil Queen needs you to defeat Snow White, right? You only need to defeat Snow White to win. Or Jafar, you have to defeat the genie. That's the only hero he needs to defeat. Ursula has to defeat King Triton. That's the only hero she needs to defeat to win. What if you had to defeat 4 to 5 heroes to win? That is Scar. Scar's whole thing is just going on a killing spree. He loves death. It's his succession pile. Now, they take the word succession from his villain song, Be Prepared, which is also where the name of this box comes from, Evil Comes Prepared, where we're talking kings and successions. So, basically, he's trying to kill all these heroes to overthrow the kingdom, pretty much, to make sure that nobody stands in the way of his monarchy. He can overthrow every potential hero that could be crowned king. So his goal is he's trying to get 15 strength in his succession pile. Now, to start that, you can defeat any heroes you want along the way. But the first villain the first hero that you have to beat to start start the process is Mufasa. To start your succession pile, Mufasa is the first villain that you have to beat. When you beat Mufasa, you put it under Scar's portrait, and that Mufasa already adds 6 strength to your succession pile. Then it's just picking off the rest of the heroes from there. You're trying to find heroes with your effect cards. You have many effect cards that let you go through your deck, your fate deck, and your fate discard pile. Long Live the King, Whisper, Be Prepared will help you get those cards back, as well as your allies. You have many allies, but you're just going to start defeating these heroes, trying to get more and more strength into your succession pile. Now, Scar takes a long time to win with. He's one of the hardest villains in the game to win with, but he's one of the easiest to understand because all you're doing with him is fighting heroes. I love playing Scar. This is one of my favorite expansions right here. Now let's talk about why this set wasn't with the 2 sets I talked previously. Ratigan and Yzma are not as beginner friendly. So let's start with Radigan. Radigan is the only villain who has a goal token. He's the only villain where his goal could take a complete turn and switch, literally. There's a... Bro. I just moved, and the flies in this place are so much bigger. But, yeah, I'm trying. I tried to kill it. I can't catch it. He's trying to get out, too. Anyway, Radigan his goal can just switch. It'll take one turn for it to switch, and that's all. So basically, Radigan has to get the Robot Queen over to Buckingham Palace. He has to play the Robot Queen to his lair, which is on the opposite side, and you have to move it across the board. Now, here's the thing. The Robot Queen card costs 15 coins. Now, if you haven't played Villainous yet and aren't aware with the rules, let me just tell you, 15 power is a lot. The most you can gain from a location is 3. And some villains don't even have a gain 3 power on their locations. But this isn't a how to play video. So Radigan has many cards he can play to knock that cost down. He can eventually make that so he can just play the Robot Queen for free whenever he gets her. Also, his best way of moving her across the board is the airship card, which lets you move an item or ally at its location to any location. Now, Radigan has to start his turn with the Robot Queen at the palace to win. But what if that Robot Queen gets discarded? You don't have to go back through your deck, do you? No, you don't. Because the only thing that can discard the Robot Queen after it's on the board is Basil. Basil, the great detective, the Sherlock Holmes of Disney. And if Basil does discard the Robot Queen, then you flip your goal token over, and your goal is no longer to have the Robot Queen at Buckingham Palace. It is to destroy Basil. Now, here's the thing. If you get to the point early on enough where you have to get the Robot Queen to Buckingham Palace, and then you have to defeat Basil, you probably already won the game. Defeating Basil is much easier if you set the game up properly. Playing your allies, having the bell on the board so you can find your cat, Felicia. But yeah, defeating Basil, like, when you get to that step, they're mostly just prolonging the inevitable at that point because you're most likely going to win. You're most likely going to be able to defeat Basil. There are cards that will help you defeat Basil, but it's likely that you already played a few of those just trying to find Basil himself. Radigan definitely has a learning curve. You're definitely going to have to strategize the best way to spend it the least amount possible to play the Robot Queen. And also, like, the flipping goal token, I heard, does confuse some people. But let's talk about Yzma. Yzma has to play hide and seek with Kuzco. So there's her board right there, that purple one right there. As you see, she doesn't just have one fate deck by her board. No, she has 4. Her fate deck gets split up into 4 cards. Or 4 decks of 4. And evenly spread across the top of each of her locations. You have to find Kuzco. He's in one of these 4 decks. There are multiple cards you can play to play cards from your fate decks, look at your fate decks without anybody knowing, and they have to be played to that location. And you have to play all these cards to go through these to find Kuzco. Now, not only does Yzma have to defeat Kuzco, she has to defeat Kuzco using Kronk. Kronk can get help from Royal Guards as long as, like, her Royal Guards, which are her only other allies, like, she can use that to defeat Kronk, but mostly you're supposed to use the dagger. But here's the thing that a lot of people forget about Yzma. Kronk can become a hero. Each time you move Kronk to a new location, you put 1 power on him. There's also fate cards that can put power on him. When Kronk gets 3 power on him, Kronk moves to the top of your board and becomes a hero. And you have to play a card called Right Hand Man to get him back. But you can also play cards to make sure power stays off of Kronk. But yeah, just kind of the 4 fate decks with Yzma probably is what makes her so complicated to understand. But after a game or so, you should be able to understand Yzma. Radigan, I think, has the biggest learning curve. Okay, now we're talking about the next set. And this next set probably has the 3 most difficult villains to win with, but they're not the hardest ones to understand. I didn't even include this in the buyer's guide. This is probably where I would put the Oogie Boogie set. I would definitely grab this just because he's so fun to play. But if you're not a fan of paying $20 just to get 1 villain, I mean, You don't have to. But yeah, that's probably where I would put Oogie Boogie. He's not that complex. He just has dice. But he's really fun. Really freaking fun. Okay, so these three villains are probably some of the most difficult villains to win with, but they're not the most difficult to understand. And that I have is Perfectly Wretched. This is my favorite box. I love Perfectly Wretched. All three of the villains in this box are super fun. But, however, and including my favorite villain to play, period, is Mother Gothel, who comes in this box. Now, let's just start talking. Let's talk about the main girl herself, Cruella de Vil. No, you don't have to kill the puppies in this game. Thankfully, they left that part out. You just have to capture 99 of them. Now, Cruella de Vil is going to have 12 of these little tokens. There's going to be 3 for each of her locations. It's going to have a number and the name of the location. There's 3 tokens for each location. There's 2 tokens for each location that have an 11 on them. So there's 8 tokens total that have the number 11 on them. And there's 1 token for each location that has a 22 on it. And you have to get these tokens on your board and keep capturing them until you get them up to 99. Now, if you're younger, possibly, like really young, the math of this part might be a little difficult. But not only that, Cruella is a very slow villain. She can take a really long time. However, my girlfriend, who favors Cruella, really good with her. Really good at getting those puppies fast. I don't know how she does that. Okay. But yeah, that's Cruella de Vil. You have to play a bunch of cards, get tokens on your board, capture them. It could be a little bit of a learning curve, but she's not too hard to understand. I'd say the other 2 are definitely more confusing. Like Pete. Pete has 4 goals total. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to shuffle these 5 gold tokens, which are these rectangular sized tokens. You're going to shuffle all 5 of them, pick 4 of them, and place them one face down at each location on your board. And only you can look at them. Fake cards will let your opponents look at them to see just what you're working on. But you have to complete all 4 of these goals to win. Whether it's paying 6 power in 1 turn, or it's trying to gain a certain amount of money off a card, or if it's having just a whole bunch of allies at a whole bunch of locations, or a bunch of allies at the same location, or a bunch of items at 1 location. Yeah, that's all 5 of her goals. Or his goals. I would definitely say Pete is a chaotic mess. He is a very, very fun chaotic mess. But, and I would say that a lot of the things that he has to do, he should be a beginner-friendly villain, but they can all mesh into confusion. But, yeah, Pete's also still just very fun, but he could be a little complicated. And finally, I think the hardest villain to understand in this box, as well as the hardest villain in Disney Villainous to win with, is probably Mother Gothel. So Mother Gothel is essentially one big game of tug of war. So Mother Gothel has Rapunzel as a cardboard token. Rapunzel starts at the top of your board at the tower, and at the end of each of your turns, she will move 1 location towards Corona, which is the kingdom, and at the other side of your board. If Rapunzel ever gets there, and then on the next turn she's still there, you're going to start losing trust. As Mother Gothel, you have to gain 10 trust from Rapunzel. So the longer she's at the kingdom, the more trust you're going to lose, and you need to keep Rapunzel away. Now, to do that, you're going to have to start vanquishing Rapunzel. Now, that doesn't kill Rapunzel like it would other heroes. She simply just moves back to the tower. But there's also so many combos you can do. This is why Mother Gothel's my favorite. She takes so much strategy to get, like, you can gain up to 5 trust in 1 turn if you're really lucky. And yes, I've done it multiple times. I take very much enjoyment in all the combos you can do with Mother Gothel. However, she is very hard to win. Juggling Rapunzel between locations, trying to keep her back, but also gaining trust, but also making sure that your opponents aren't going to win first. It can get really confusing, and all the strategies definitely are going that you can use. All the combos are definitely going to take some time for some people to figure out. I definitely say Mother Gothel's the most confusing one in this box. But if you're fine with these boxes, and you're looking for definitely more of a challenge with villains who aren't the most complicated, definitely go with Perfectly Wretched. Hell, if you get the core set and you like it and you're like, I'm going to skip all this, I just want to go the most complicated villains, the hardest villains to win with, go with Perfectly Wretched. But we still have 2 boxes to talk about here. Yeah, we have 2 boxes to talk about here. So let's do it. So the final 2 boxes I would recommend buying are Bigger and Badder, and Sugar and Spite. Buy Sugar and Spite, they're kind of confusing. If you don't care about getting all the sets and you just want to buy the villains you want, if you like Pixar, buy it. If you don't like Pixar, ignore this set. All 3 villains in this set are garbage. This is the worst Villainous set, in my opinion. But let's talk about Sugar and Spite. Because I think that if any of the boxes you're going to buy last, it's this one. And it's not just because I hate this box, it's because the villains in this set can legitimately be infuriatingly, or at least one of them can be infuriating to understand. So Sugar and Spite is currently our newest Disney Villainous set, until Treacherous Tides comes out in July with Davy Jones and Tamatoa. Davy Jones and Tamatoa, by the way, they don't look too complicated. In hindsight, I would probably put them... I don't know. I know what their goals are. Tamatoa has to keep the Heart of Te-Fiti from Moana and the Hook from Maui, and Davy Jones has to find 5 treasure by defeating the heroes that have the treasure. They don't sound too complicated. Tamatoa might be a little complicated. I would probably put it on with Scar's box. But only time will tell how complicated they are. So the reason why I have this set so low is mostly King Candy. King Candy is the most difficult villain to understand out of all of these villains. King Candy doesn't have a board with 4 locations. His board is one giant rectangular location. It is the Raceway. It's in a figure 8, and at the beginning of your turn, you can move 1 to 4 spaces. And based on whatever symbol you land on, you can do the actions in front, behind, and the one that your villain mover is on. You have to find Vanellope Von Sweets. The easiest way to do that is probably finding Wreck-It Ralph and defeating Wreck-It Ralph, because when he's defeated, you find and play Vanellope Von Sweets. And then, when you find Vanellope Von Sweets, you have to put a glitch on her. When you put a glitch on her, you then take this little white racer token with Vanellope's face on it, and place you and her at the start and finish space. And at the beginning of each of your turns, she will move an undetermined amount of spaces based on what cards you draw. She moves by, you draw a top card off King Candy's deck, and with the Vanellope's Racer token, that the space is equal to that card's cost plus 2. But at the same time, you're going to have to beat her around the board. You're going to have to be faster than her with King Candy and try to get around the board first. Let me just actually show you his board. But yeah, King Candy, till this set's been out for almost a year now. Until this day, people don't really understand how King Candy works. So this is his board. As you see, it's in the figure 8 circuit. And basically, when you attach a glitch to Vanellope, you put her racer token and you here, and you gotta beat her around the board to win. Now, is he the hardest villain to win with? No. Is he difficult to win with? Yes. Is he difficult to understand? Definitely. He is by far the most unique villain. I mean, he's the first villain of the 50 to have not 4 locations and have just one giant location, and he also has the most unique way of moving. The other villain in the box, Shere Khan's not difficult at all. So Shere Khan has to defeat Mowgli, and Shere Khan can do this very fast. But at the same time, your Fate deck and Mowgli himself will place fire tokens on the board, which will cover up Shere Khan's actions. Shere Khan's the first villain I can see. If you Fate him enough, you can literally stop him from doing anything. Like, he literally will not be able to do a single thing if you place him in the right spots. Shere Khan can be really frustrating. But yeah, he's not that difficult to understand. He's just a little tedious to win with sometimes. Alright, and the final box. Bigger and Badder. More like same size, just bad. Should be the name of this set. So let's get to probably the easiest villain to understand in this box, which is Lotso. So Lotso has Buzz Lightyear on a cardboard token. That cardboard token has 2 sides. There's one side with Hero Buzz, and there is another side with the what do they call demo mode Buzz Lightyear when he turns evil in the movie. So Lotso sucks. He has to have all four of his villain, all four. He only has 4 heroes in his deck. He has to have all 4 of those heroes at 0 strength in the Caterpillar Room, as well as Buzz Lightyear in the Caterpillar Room. Now, the hardest one to get to 0 strength is definitely Rex. Because Rex can't lose strength if there's any heroes at his location, so you have to deal with Rex separately. And after you get all 4 of those heroes out on your board, all of your effect cards just completely reset the heroes. You have so many cards that remove strength tokens off of heroes, or basically, it's about 5 times easier to remove strength, to give heroes extra strength, or just remove that hero from the board entirely, than it is to get them to lose any strength at all. Lotso is so garbage. That his Fate deck is so bad. He's confusing. He's complicated. He takes a long time to win. I wouldn't recommend playing Lotso as a beginner at all. Let's get to Madame Mim. Madame Mim can be a little complicated. She's probably Actually, I think she's probably a little easier to understand than Lotso. So Madame Mim has 2 Fate decks. One with all effect cards. All 8 of them are effect cards. And then she has another 7 Fate cards, which are Merlin's transformations. You have to defeat every one of Merlin's transformations to win. Each transformation can only be beaten by a certain Madame Mim transformation, which you'll find for her deck. Madame Mim is extremely luck-based. You have to draw the right transformations at the right time. If you don't, you're never going to get that transformation on your board unless you pay a hefty amount of money with I'll Make the Rules, which removes a transformation for 4 coins, and Madame Mim has a serious power struggle. Honestly, Madame Mim's also just really annoying to play. You either love playing Madame Mim or you hate playing Madame Mim. There's no in between. She's not too difficult to understand, and she can be pretty easy to win with, but you could either win with Madame Mim quickly or not even have a chance based on where the right transformations are in your deck. Now let's talk about who is possibly the worst written villain in Disney Villainous, and that is Syndrome. The card that Syndrome has to win with and the rules in the villain guide are direct opposites of each other. Thank God for Wikipedia, so I can finally understand it. Syndrome probably has the worst written rules ever. They did not write them right at all. So Syndrome has to Syndrome has to fully upgrade his Omnidroid and have no heroes on his board. So you're going to start the game off with Omnidroid 8 on your board. You have to defeat a hero of Omnidroid, destroy it. Then you have to play 1 major modifications card and then remove it to find V9, major modifications. You did some major modifications on your last Omnidroid. Upgrade it to Omnidroid version 9. Then you have to destroy that one. Then you have to play 3 major modifications and remove those to play Omnidroid V10 at Metro City, or whatever it's called, Metropolis, whatever. I forget what it's called. Then you have to have no heroes on your board. So what are your opponents going to do? They're just going to play every hero on your board. Oh, you also have to have the remote at the Omnidroid's location and activate it to destroy the Omnidroid. And the Omnidroid, when you play if you have the remote in your hand or on your board, on your side of the board, the Omnidroid is going to spawn at the top of your board. Every hero in your deck besides Jack takes the remote. So when they take the remote, you move the Omnidroid to the bottom of the board at that hero's location, and you have to defeat them. And the heroes will just start playing catch. Eventually you have to destroy the Omnidroid and then destroy every hero on your board, but yeah, you'll probably have every hero on your board. And the villain guide tells you, or I think it was the Omnidroid card itself tells you, it's like, if the remote's on your board, it still spawns at the bottom, but the villain guide tells you otherwise, or it just doesn't tell you anything at all. I can't recall exactly what, but I know that Syndrome is really confusing. Is he my favorite villain in the box to play? Yes, but he's still one of the most confusing, most difficult villains to win with if you're getting fated a lot. If you play against if you're playing against that kind of person who fates you as much as possible, before this stops becoming buyer's guide and just a complete rant about how much I hate bigger and badder. Don't get bigger and badder. If you want to get all the sets, get bigger and badder last. I guarantee you, you're not missing a single freaking thing. But yeah, a little rundown on my buyer's guide. I would buy one of the green boxes. I would buy one of the 2 core boxes first, then either the purple or the yellow box, and then I would buy the Scar box, and then probably the Oogie Boogie set if they have it available, or buy it first. It doesn't really matter. You can actually, this kind of wild card, you can just buy that Oogie Boogie set whenever you want. It's just one villain. He's not too confusing. He's not too easy to win with. He can have a learning curve with the dice, but either way, he's still just a really fun villain to play. Then I would buy the red box, but I would buy these 2 last because these have some of the most unique, confusing, and terrible villains to play. So, yeah, that's my buyer's guide. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.